my friends, I have just had a grand insight which I must immediately record in my quiet, closed car. Today is April 10th, 2017. Dr. Carol Blaney here. The insight that I have just had is as follows. In my video, which I recorded a few days ago on Aspie Brain Design 101, Part 1, discussing the left temporal lobe filter, just to review, for background, the left temporal lobe filter in the neurotypical mind, which is the mind that's the average mind that basically is the same genotype and phenotype that came from our ancient ancestors, that's still active today, that may not be relevant today, but is still active today. That left temporal lobe filters out almost all sensory input data except for the sensory input data that is conducive to survival and harmony of the tribe and, all the social nuances that are necessary for survival, because in order for the tribe to survive, there was a lot of social need to intercommunicate with the tribe and be one with the tribe and have loyalty and so forth. So all that information that's filtered out, my hypothesis is that it's still retained in the body somehow, the subconscious, if you consider the subconscious mind being the body or the body's connection to the rest of the universe. Because our body includes everything. It includes everything within our dotted line. It includes the mind, the muscles, all the organs and everything. Whereas the mind is a subset of the body. So our mind, which is predominantly, we believe in the brain, is our conscious awareness. Because, when you perturbate the brain, you experience things in your consciousness. So we hypothesize that the mind is the brain, which is the consciousness. But the subconsciousness, in other words, if someone asks you something and you don't know the answer, but your body knows the answer, that would be defined as the subconscious. And probably that information is stored in the body. And then, of course, since we're one with the universe, it's stored in the universe also. And we won't get into that at this very instant in time. Maybe cover that later. So the point is, though, is that the neurotypical mind, the neurotypically evolved brain, filters out most of the incoming data except for what's crucial to the survival of that species, that Homo sapiens. The point to remember of this point is, one, that survival information may or may not be relevant for today's culture and world, but it was very useful to get us to this point to help us survive in our tribes and our agrarian societies and so forth. Not necessarily relevant for today's high-tech society. That could be up for debate. But now the Asperger brain's left temporal lobe has been studied and observed and measured, and repeated tests show beyond the shadow of a doubt that these Asperger minds do not filter the information in the same way. In fact, you might even say that the filters are gone, and so that's why the Asperger mind is inundated with a lot of data, because that's why we have sensory overload, because all this incoming data, we see everything in our conscious mind, like our brain sees everything. So imagine watching a cartoon with a simple figure in a background walking along. It's very easy to comprehend. Figure, background, tree, house, easy, simple concepts. But now imagine that same artist adds psychedelic sky, psychedelic grass. You can see every blade of grass, and the figure and the ground aren't necessarily distinguished from one another. You have to figure it out yourself. You have to look and decipher the outline of the human body and go, oh yeah, I make out the human body pattern in this psychedelic picture. That would be how the Asperger sees the universe. Have you ever gone to some restaurant where they give the kids books, like coloring books, and every once in a while there's a page that says, can you find the person in this picture? Can you find the dog in this picture? And among all the lines, your mind has to decipher a shape that looks like a dog. Well, Aspergers are pretty good at this, because we have to do it all the time. And we do that with all the incoming data. We have to figure out what data makes the perception of human, that's a person. Car, that's a car. Whereas the neurotypical mind, the filter's automatic. The software's already done. Once you're born, your software helps you see the archetypal images of person, mother, father, and those are like pre-programmed in. Okay, so now What have I said so far? The neurotypical mind has a left temporal lobe that has a very strong filter, and the relevant information for survival of the tribe is the only thing in their conscious mind. But the unconscious mind, the body, still has all that other information in there, but there's just no way to access it. There's just, you don't, if you're a neurotypical, you don't even see it as a reality. It's not there. But what I'm saying is it is there, and you could learn how to access it, perhaps by going into a meditative state and allowing answers to come to you. That happens a lot with all sorts of people, neurotypical and Asperger people. It happens. You go into a meditative state, or maybe you sleep and you wake up and you just have the answer. Or maybe you get a premonition or a gut feel about something, and you're right. I see this all the time in all sorts of people, not just Aspies, not just empaths, not just psychokinetic people or whatever, telekinesis people, not psychic people, but just anyone. You do have access to that data, but the only way to access it for the neurotypical mind, I hypothesize, is to relax, focus on something else. First, you have to intend to solve a problem, and then you relax, you could do something else, maybe a day, maybe a week, you'll get the answer. It just comes to you. Now, the whole point of this revelation is, I've already now told you the background information about the two different minds, Asperger's versus neurotypical. What I'm asserting, and my ongoing theme, is that the Asperger mind is actually an evolutionary advantage to help our race survive. That's my premise. And I will do what I can to show you this, so that if you're an Asperger, you will see the benefit of your mind, and then you will utilize it properly. You won't feel like, I have to stop my mind from being the way it is. No, your mind is the way it is. You are an evolutionary advantage. Okay, now we don't want everyone to be like you, but you're part of this society, and you have something that will help society survive. You have a mind that has no filter or a little filter. You might be able to train yourself to develop a filter like I've done, because you see trees so often, you finally build your own filter and you automatically see a tree if you need to. Like if you have too many things coming in to your awareness and you know consciously that trees aren't important, you just, okay, tree, and then you're looking for your dog that you lost, and then you'll see your dog, because you won't be inundated looking at every single tree and deciding if it's a tree. But that is a consciously designed program, not an automatic filter that's in the neurotypical mind. I know I keep digressing because this is a very deep and amazing thought process. The Asperger has the advantage of no filter. Now, why is this an advantage? Okay, here's the point, is that the neurotypically evolved brain works for 1 million years ago, the survival of the tribe. But now we're in a new world, and that old filter isn't relevant. So we're going to make a lot of wrong decisions if everybody's a neurotypical. And there won't be anybody around telling us that, oh, wait a minute, you see the forest, but you don't see the trees. You see the forest, but you don't see that the trees interact in this deeper way, so that if you remove a part of the forest, then you kill the whole forest, for example. Or if you remove part of the ecosystem, you could destroy the entire ecosystem. See, this is very easy for an Asperger to see, because that's how they see anyway. They see all the interactions. The neurotypical, on the other hand, has to work really, really hard to see this. They have to study the small domains of knowledge and somehow figure out how to piece them together to make a holistic view. Whereas the Asperger sees the holistic view first, and that's why Western medicine sees the body as a bunch of organs, and then now we're getting better. We're seeing the organs as a bunch of interconnecting systems, and they interact to form this machine. And I think the Asperger mind, on the other hand, would see the human body first as this universe connected to everything. Dr. Carol Blaney here, continuing my rant. I have a revelation that the advantage of the Asperger brain in not having the left temporal lobe filter is that it can now take in more information and decide what information is important, instead of just being told what information is important by the filter. And yes, you will require more processing time to do this, but you do have 65% larger brains, and you do have more power efficiency, since the Asperger mind thinks in his thinking part of the brain with less amplitude of firings, which would translate to less power usage per nerve impulse, but yet the information is still there. So yes, you're not so robust in a dirty electric environment or a city filled with microwaves and computer transformers near you, but if you can go out in nature and if you can be quiet, you will be able to see all the incoming data, and if you're given enough time, you will be able to then process that and see what is necessary for survival and create your own filter. And to create your own filter, you can study as much as possible and then digest it into YouTube videos. That was a kind of a joke, but you can digest it into, well, just like physics people digest their lifetimes of work into an equation, such as, the Schrödinger equation. That's like a piece of truth that's digested into an equation. And once you study it, you learn it, accept it, and then you go, okay, we're going to label this body of knowledge as an equation. And then you trust it because so many people have agreed that it's correct. And then you use that Schrödinger equation to understand light. But you can't forget the assumptions that went into that, and the Asperger won't. The Asperger will realize that it's a chunk of knowledge that has assumptions. And now me, Dr. Carol Blaney, when I go into making a new theory of unification of the physical forces, I have to realize that that is an equation that describes how light operates, but the assumptions are that that's how light operates in our universe, not necessarily in the middle of a black hole. And so I have to dissect all the assumptions if I'm really going to get at the ultimate truth. But that's a whole nother discussion and maybe a whole nother lifetime of work. Maybe in my next lifetime I'll be able to do that. So since the Asperger mind is primed to not filter out things using an improper filter, that is, since the Asperger mind doesn't use the outdated filter that the neurotypical has, the Asperger mind is our best hope of seeing the universe, of viewing the way things are, the way things have been up until now, and viewing the possibility of the way things could evolve to help steer us to make the right choices so that we can evolve into the best possible future. And if we don't do it now, it's pretty much everyone would agree that we won't survive, and nor will our planet. I mean, we'll destroy our home, we'll spoil our nest. But if there's a chance to save our nest, it'll be up to the Aspergers to advise us on how to proceed. And you notice that all the books out there that do offer viable solutions that the neurotypicals laugh at, those are pretty much written by probably Asperger brains, because who in this world has the patience to spend their entire life and devote their entire life and negate their social life to study and learn science? Guess who does it? The people that love to do that sort of thing. The Aspergers, the geeks, the people with non-typical brains. And if you're neurotypical and you do this, I salute and admire you, because you are the highest level human out there. Not only can you get along with the majority of the human race and translate the science to those people, like Dr. Rhonda Patrick, for example, you're the translator, but you can also see the other side. And maybe it's the half Asperger people that do this. And even though I'm half Asperger, I'm not claiming that I'm smart enough to do that, but I do feel like I'm sort of headed in that direction. Because having, I guess, the best of both worlds, I'm trying to be humbly worthy, like I've always felt unworthy my entire life, and I'm starting to see that maybe there's a worthiness to the way I am. And I'm not completely Asperger because I'm not able to invent the Schrödinger equation, or not invent, but devise it. Then again, maybe if I had the opportunity that Schrödinger had, I would be able to. I'm more like Faraday. I'm working in a lab with no money, and trying to figure things out. Well, he got paid a small salary, but he figured things out without a huge amount of funding. I don't know. Maybe Schrödinger did too, but okay. Basically, Schrödinger had time, so he must have had people cooking for him and paying his bills so that he could do the work. And if he was earning the money, then he must have been getting funding. So whatever. Yeah, so Aspies, guess what? Be happy that you don't have a filter, because that's the advantage that you bring. That is the key effing advantage that you bring. Oh my God. Not having that filter, how can anyone say that that's a disorder? This society needs people without the goddamn filter. Okay, rant is over. Peace, everybody. Peace, peace, peace. And I will now calm down and go have a Starbucks matcha green tea.